In 1963, Francis Ford Coppola and Jack Nicholson both directed the same horror film. Neither of them planned to. Neither of them fully knew what the film was about. And the whole thing started because Roger Corman had 2 days left with Boris Karloff and absolutely no script. Roger Corman by 1963 was already the fastest filmmaker working in Hollywood. He made pictures in weeks on budgets that major studios spent on catering. His model was simple: move fast, spend nothing, get it out the door. That year, he had just finished shooting The Raven, an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation stacked with talent. Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and a young Jack Nicholson in one of his earliest film roles. On the final day of production, Corman looked at what he had: a fully built Gothic castle set, his crew still on the clock, and Boris Karloff still under contract for 2 more days of work. 2 days with one of the most recognizable faces in horror history and absolutely no script to put him in. Corman's answer was to start filming immediately. He pulled together a loose premise. A French soldier in the Napoleonic era follows a mysterious woman to a remote castle where a brooding baron lives with a terrible secret. Karloff would play the baron. They would figure out the rest later. Over Saturday and Sunday, Corman filmed every scene he could with Karloff on that borrowed set. Karloff, a consummate professional, delivered the performance. By Sunday evening, his contract days were up. Corman had footage of a baron, a castle, something resembling a ghost, and almost no story connecting any of it. What he did not have was an ending. Or a working middle, really. The film needed connective scenes, a rising tension, some way to land the thing. So he handed it to Jack Nicholson to keep shooting. Nicholson directed additional sequences over the following weeks, trying to find a coherent story in the existing footage. Then Francis Ford Coppola came in and directed more sequences. Coppola was in the early stretch of his career, years before The Godfather would make him a household name. He shot whatever seemed to bridge the footage together, working in different locations from the original Gothic set. Monty Hellman, another filmmaker working in Corman's orbit at the time, also directed sequences for the film. By the time editing began, at least 4 directors had touched the footage, each of them picking up a story that none of them had started together. The result is genuinely hard to describe in a way that sounds coherent, because it is not quite coherent. A French soldier pursues a mysterious woman. There is a baron with a buried past. There is a ghost, or possibly not a ghost. Events accumulate, but the logic keeps drifting, as if each director picked up mid-dream and invented a new one. And yet it got released. The terror hit theaters in 1963 and made back its budget. That was always Corman's actual goal. Not a masterpiece. A product that existed and returned money. By that measure, it worked exactly as intended. What nobody planned on was the copyright situation. The paperwork needed to keep the film legally protected was either filed incorrectly or simply never renewed at the right moment. The terror slipped into the public domain, meaning it now belongs to no one and everyone simultaneously. That status gave the film a second life on cheap VHS multi-packs in the 1980s, the kind sold at dollar stores alongside 5 other forgotten horror films for a few dollars total. Then it migrated online. It lives on the Internet Archive right now, completely free, watched by people who mostly find it baffling and oddly watchable at the same time. Francis Ford Coppola directed The Godfather in 1972. Jack Nicholson won Best Actor at the 1976 Oscars for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Both of them had spent real time on a film with no unified script, shot on a borrowed set, passed between directors like a problem nobody wanted to be the last one holding. What I keep coming back to is not that the terror is a mess. It clearly is. It is that it runs about 81 minutes and still generates a specific kind of unease, the feeling of watching something that does not quite obey the rules of how stories are supposed to work. That might actually be the most honest horror film you can make, one where not even the people creating it knew what was going to happen next. If you want more stories like this, films that exist because someone made a strange call on a Friday afternoon and nobody ever fully sorted out who owned the result, follow The Real Vault. There are more of them than you would think.